This is Dean Westnorf again. I wanted to discuss a little bit today about the woman taken in adultery, found in John chapter 8. It takes up the first 11 or so verses of that chapter. And we all know the story. And here is the Sadducees and Pharisees. They're bringing this woman before Christ, and they say, we found this woman in adultery in the very act. And, Moses told us we had to stone her, so what do you say? So this is an interesting happening. One of the things I find very interesting about this is, where is the man that was committing adultery with her? And so we see that there was corruption even then. And there was inequality, if you will. But I think it's very likely that he was there and that he was one of those condemning her. Here he is sitting with her, and yet very likely he was one of those condemning her as well. Well, we know what happens next. Christ kind of does nothing. He draws in the sand, and they just keep pestering him until finally he makes a statement, and he says, "He who was without sin cast the first stone at her." And then he goes back to drawing in the sand again. And then a few minutes later he looks up, and this is what happens. When Jesus had lifted up himself and saw none but the woman, he said unto her, "Woman, where are those thine accusers? Hath no man condemned thee?" She said, "No man, Lord." And Jesus said unto her, "Neither do I condemn thee. Go and sin no more." Now, I find this fact that Christ didn't condemn her, that he didn't cast a stone at her, very significant. And here's why. First, we know that Christ suffered for everyone's sins. We also know that the sin, or sexual sin, is second only to murder in seriousness of sins. It's very serious. And yet, throughout the history of the world, it might be the most popular sin, if you will. The one that is committed more frequently than any other. And Christ is going to have to suffer for this woman's sin and everyone else that has ever committed any type of sexual transgression. And yet he says to her, "I don't condemn you either. Go and sin no more." Now it's interesting, he tells her not to sin no more. This is a very important part of that, but we're not going to talk about that too much today. What I want to point out here is Christ was the only person that is worthy, if you will, to cast a stone at her. The only one that was without sin. And yet he did not cast a stone. Christ does not cast stones. This is the message today. And if Christ doesn't cast stones, we should never cast stones. Even to those who sin against us. Even to those who we find their sin repulsive and unacceptable. We do not cast stones if we are truly a disciple of Christ, because he does not cast stones.